I just wanted to kind of introduce a few folks that are on the meeting with us here. First of all, I got Barry Sklar, who is Director of Information and Technology for the district and helping us support this viewing tonight. I have Vicky Chartier is somewhere in the picture over there. She is the Supervisor of Personnel Services. Deb Dower is the Benefits Administrator for the district. And we have Katie Stewart, who is works with our broker, our insurance broker, Risk Strategies, soon to be Brown & Brown. And also Justin Rosen is joining us, who is with RSI, which is the third party, we'll call it vendor, that is helping us support some of the information tonight, and he'll explain more on that. So thank you, everyone that's joining us, and thanks to the group that's going to help explain this along. My part here is just to kind of talk about what our plan is for tonight. So we have some information that we want to share, and we have some, we'll call it frequently asked questions that we're going to get to towards the end, but also allowing some time for folks to ask questions as well. I do want to caution, though, some of the real personal questions that might get into details of health situations you might want to reserve for an offline time with us up at HR, or find some other venue we can do that with. But once again, thank you for joining us, and another reminder that we are being recorded. So what are we doing here tonight? Well, we're halfway through the open enrollment period, which ends on May 8th. And our hope is to be doing these presentations to share as much information as we can to help you select the appropriate health plan for you. Obviously, open enrollment is for health, dental, vision, and some other options as well. But most of our time, really all of our time tonight, will be focused on the health plans that we have going forward. This year, we're spending more time doing so because there's a significant change that is worth bringing to everyone's attention and offering some explanation as well. Every year, we work with the PEC, which is the Public Employees Committee, which helps oversee the benefits for the district. Each union is represented with, based on their population, they get a percentage vote on options for insurance. The retirees are also represented and have a percentage towards voting as well. The district administration does not get to vote or select what insurance or what types of decrements we choose for insurance. It's really up to the PEC to do that. Knowing that we're facing some pretty significant continual increases in health insurance, we wanted to look for an option that might be palatable to the PEC and really to all employees, including ourselves that are subscribers too. Over the last 7 years, I believe health insurance costs have risen or doubled. Really, they've risen about 100%. This year, going into a new plan season starting July 1, we were facing another increase of 9.1%. And at some point, that becomes something that you can't tolerate, and we have to find other options. So, again, we presented the PEC with this plan. This plan that we're going to talk about is a PFA plan. It's a participant funding arrangement. And I guess I'm going to try to explain it briefly, but I'll have some others come jump in and help me do that. What we're looking to do is, rather than face a 9% increase on health insurance, the option that we're opting for, or that the PEC opted for, was this PFA. And what happens there is the district will be purchasing a higher deductible health insurance rather than the lower one that we currently have for this year. In that, because of the higher deductible program with Blue Cross, all the same coverage, the higher deductible program, rather than a 9.1% increase to our premiums, there's a 7% decrease. So that's a chasm of 16% that would have been, you would own 22% of that. The district would roughly own 78% of that. So we're looking at millions of dollars of savings here. With that savings, the district has put money back into this health plan, which is the PFA payment program, that will then offset those higher deductibles. So therefore, my opinion, and probably the opinion from others that are presenting tonight, is that your insurance costs inevitably are going to be less. Your premiums will be less by, the 7% that they'll be decreased from this year, but also there'll be less out-of-pocket expenses as far as copays and things of that nature. So that's really the impetus of why we're going down this road. again, we're going to give you more information than you probably need tonight, because this doesn't start until July 1st. And really, our goal tonight is to help you select the appropriate health insurance for July 1st, before the open enrollment ends. So at this point, I guess one other thing I want to say is, you can see on the screen, Vicki is sharing a slide deck. That, plus all the other information that we talk about tonight, can be found on the district website. So please make sure you go on there and take a look if you haven't done so already. Reach out to us. If you're a current employee, you have to go on Employee Navigator to sign up for benefits. If you're a retiree, you're going to reach out to Deb Dower from our office, and she'll support you in choosing the benefits that you need to do so with. So again, thank you. This is being recorded. And I'm going to hand it over to Justin Rosen, who can certainly speak about the PFA a lot better than I can. And we'll go down the road from there. So, Justin, you're up.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. No, appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight, everyone. I'm Justin Rosen. I work for an organization called Reimbursement Specialists Incorporated. So we're a third-party administrator. My office is just south of Boston, Norwell, Massachusetts. And we do what you would expect from a TPA as it relates to flexible spending accounts, COBRA services, things like that. But where we really differentiate is with this proprietary program that we call the participating funding arrangement. I generally explain this program to folks outside of the industry is simply think of it as insurance for your insurance, if that makes sense. So at a very high level, and Bill already kind of alluded to it, the district capitalizes by purchasing a slightly less expensive base plan with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So we keep the network of physicians the same, the drug formulary the same, none of that changes, but we buy that higher deductible program and we save as it relates to what we pay the insurance company on a month-over-month basis. And then we simply take that savings and build it back into the benefit. So it's a reduced out-of-pocket cost for everybody on this call when you go to the doctor. So if we go to the next slide, I'll kind of show you what I mean by that. And so when we're, this is kind of just how we're mapping folks today. So if you're on that HMO Blue Enhanced Value program, you would map directly to this Gold PFA offering. If you're on the HMO Blue New England Options program today, you map directly to the Silver PFA plan. The Access Blue New England Saver is that HSA compliant offering that folks have, and they'll have this option to remain in that exact same program today under that PFA bronze option. And then the Blue Care Elect PPO, so this is your true PPO program. This program is not changing at all. And I think, unless somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the premium on that program is going up the true 9%.
That's correct.
Awesome. So we'll kind of talk. I think the next slide just shows what the actual contributions are. So the first slide is based on 26 pay periods, and everybody can see that they're getting a decrease from this year. That's, I do a lot of these meetings. It's very unusual for us to be able to go out and tell folks that their premiums are decreasing on a year-over-year basis. So that's great news in itself. But in addition to that, I really do believe that we're going to give you guys a really good benefit. I think folks are going to be really happy with it. So I'll talk about what that looks like on the next slide. And so, again, as we kind of talked about, we're buying. So let me start by saying that everybody, I guess, if from an HMO plan standpoint, everybody is going to be on this Blue Cross Blue Shield New England Access Saver 2 plan. That's the insurance card that you're going to get from Blue Cross Blue Shield. So same network of doctors, same prescription drug formularies, all those things. The difference in what we're doing here is we're buying a plan with more deductible exposure and more things that tie to that deductible. And then with that said, we're going to offset it on a first dollar basis with a debit card for the gold and the silver offering. So if we go to the next slide, I think we talk about the gold plan there. And we can see that all the plans have a $4,000 individual deductible, an $8,000 family deductible. What you're electing, whether you take that gold, that silver, or the bronze program, is the amount of deductible offset, if that makes sense. So in the gold program, that debit card is going to offset that deductible by $3,500 for an individual, $7,000 for a family. So you're going to use that debit card for everything. Office visits, prescription drugs. You use all that money until it's gone. If and only if you exhaust the funding on the debit card, you're responsible for that last $500 of deductible at the individual level. So that's the kind of the biggest point that I can make tonight, is that if you're on this gold or silver plan, you should never be paying anything to a doctor, to a pharmacist, to anybody out of your pocket until you've exhausted 100% of the funding on that debit card. Does that make sense? I know it's a different model than this year. In this year's model, right, what you're doing today, you go for an office visit, you pay a copay, right? You go for a prescription drug, you pay a copay. In this model, all those copays go away, and you're using this district-funded debit card to subsidize your expenses on a first dollar basis. So I don't want anyone leaving the call tonight thinking they've got a $4,000 deductible or an $8,000 deductible. That's not the case. Does that make sense to anyone? Everyone? Awesome. The same methodology holds true for the silver program, right? So the only difference with the silver plan is that we're going to, the debit card is not going to subsidize as much. The silver plan debit card subsidizes the first $3,000 of that individual deductible, the first $6,000 of a family deductible. You're responsible, if and only if you exhaust that debit card funding, for the last $1,000 in the silver plan or the last $2,000 as a family. So again, we're just using these debit cards to pay for our medical expenses, just as we always have. And from a flow standpoint, what that looks like is you're going to go in. Let's use prescription drugs as the first example, right? So prescription drugs are really the only thing that you should be paying for at time of service with that debit card. So you're going to go for your prescription. The pharmacist isn't going to let you leave without paying for that drug. Just use your debit card to pay for it. For everything else, you're going to get a bill from your doctor, and you'll get an explanation of benefits from Blue Cross Blue Shield. Assuming the dollar amounts on those two documents match, just use your debit card to pay that bill. It's going to work just like any other Visa card in your wallet. If for whatever reason the dollar amounts on those documents don't match, reach out to my team, and we'll work to resolve the billing discrepancy for you. So that's really the easiest kind of flow that I can make it for folks, is just as it relates to your drug, you're using the district-funded debit card right at time of service. For everything else, you're letting that claim go through what I'll call the standard insurance flow, right? Bill from your doctor, explanation of benefits from the carrier. Assuming the dollar amounts match, use that district-funded debit card to pay it. If they don't match, reach out to my team, and we'll work to resolve the billing discrepancy for you. Does that make sense to everyone? Any questions so far? Yeah, so I see a question on the debit card. The question that came in, is there only one debit card? So debit cards are always mailed in sets of two. So even if you're an individual on the program, you're going to get two debit cards initially. If you need additional cards for kids at school or something to that extent, just let my team know. We can have them generated for you. What I would also tell folks is that these debit cards are mailed in that same kind of plain packaging that you would expect to receive any other credit or debit card. So I just want folks to know that they're on their way. They're going to be coming, because if you're not expecting them, they're sometimes discarded as junk mail. So I just want to make sure that folks are kind of aware that the debit card process is going to happen automatically based on what plan you elect. You're not going to have to take any action there. But I just want folks to know kind of how those cards arrive, if that makes sense. And then to touch on the bronze plan really quickly. So that is that same HSA compliant program that folks have today. In that model, there's no debit card. You're responsible for the first $2,000 of individual deductible, the first $4,000 of family deductible. You can continue to make a health savings account contribution if that's what you're doing. And then the plan or the district is going to absorb any claims beyond that $2,000 individual threshold or that $4,000 family threshold, if that makes sense. But that's the same kind of outline as it works today. So another question popped up on a flexible spending account with the gold and the silver plan. So the answer is yes, you can make a flexible spending account election with the gold or the silver plan. what I would ask folks to do as it relates to their flexible spending account elections is just be thoughtful around that, because a lot of the things that you might have been budgeting for this year through an FSA as it relates to your office visit copays or prescription drug copays, those kinds of things, in all likelihood, the debit card that the district is funding is going to cover those expenses for you. So I just ask that folks be thoughtful around their flexible spending account elections. The answer is yes, unequivocally. If you know that you're going to max out your deductible, if you're having a planned procedure or something to that extent, and you wanted to take that last $1,000 or the last $500, the last $2,000, whatever the number is, and put it on a flexible spending account, you can. I just also want folks to be thinking about kind of the office visit copays, prescription drug copays, things you might have been budgeting for in the past. You're probably not going to have to pay those in this model. And then I saw another question pop up as it relates to what if the doctor is demanding a copay at time of service. So what I would tell you, because providers are very aggressive in their billing practices, and not every practice or office manager is comfortable with kind of that HSA baseline program. So what I would tell folks is just tell that doctor, hey, I'm on a high deductible plan. You don't know where I am in relation to that deductible. Please bill my insurance. And that's going to work 99 out of 100 times. If you're at a very aggressive provider, they're demanding some type of copayment, whatever the case may be, just use your debit card. Use the debit card, swipe the debit card for $40, $60, whatever the number is. Don't get hung up at the doctor's office, right? Just give them the card, let them swipe it for the copay. What we ultimately want to make sure of in that situation is whatever you paid at time of service for that office visit comes off the actual bill. And that's something that my team can certainly help you with. But the answer is yes. The answer is they shouldn't be taking copays. But if you get an aggressive provider who's demanding one, don't let it hang you up and ruin your day. Just give them the debit card, let them run it for $40. And then I just want to also, this slide kind of outlines the out-of-pocket maximum. And so what those debit cards do is they also are a direct offset to the plan out-of-pocket maximum. So the out-of-pocket maximum on the Blue Cross Blue Shield plan was $6,450. That debit card is going to offset the first $3,500 of it. So your worst case scenario, and what I'm trying to give folks a sense of here is like, what's my worst case scenario out-of-pocket exposure under this program? So in the gold plan, you're going to have that last $500 of deductible. And then you've met your $4,000 deductible. The only thing that you're going to be charged for once that deductible is met are office visit copays and prescription drug copays. So the office visit copays are $25 for a PCP, $40 for a specialist. I believe the prescription drug copays are $15 for a generic. I think it's 15, 25, 45 or 15, 20, 45, something to that extent. My point in telling you all that is that it's going to be very hard for you to hit an out-of-pocket plan maximum once you've met that deductible, because the accumulation of $25 copays or $40 copays would have to accumulate to, roughly $3,000. It's going to be a hard thing to have happen. The other thing that I want to make sure folks are aware of is that these plans operate as an individual deductible with a family maximum. Meaning, if you're a family or if you have more than one person on this plan, everybody on the plan has a $4,000 individual deductible with that $8,000 family max. Meaning, if I have a $6,000 or a $7,000 debit card as a family, and I have one plan member who's maxed out their deductible, I can use all 4,000 of that debit card on that one member, right? I can pay that one member at 100%. I might have to pay a little bit more if somebody else goes all the way through their deductible, but I want folks to be aware of that it's not, the debit cards are rated as a percentage of the liability, so it doesn't necessarily matter where it's used or who it's used on, as long as it's used for a medical expense that's approved under the plan. I think slide kind of gets into the flexible spending account. So folks will certainly, Vicki, did you want to take this? You want me to go ahead, please?
I
Yeah.
can take care of it. Like Justin said, be thoughtful on your enrollment into the FSA. If you're used to just doing prescription copays for, $25 a month, this may not be the avenue you want to go. But if you think you're going to hit your deductible and actually, then you may want to put 500 on this or 1,000, depending on what you choose. That being said, we have changed the plan slightly so that instead of having a grace period like we do now, so at the end of this year, at the end of this plan year, ending June 30, you'll have a grace period of 75 days to use up the rest of your funds. What we've done for the next year is have an actual rollover. So you can roll over $680 of your FSA, and that will be good for the whole following year. You can use it into the following year because, if you end up electing too much in your FSA, we wanted you to be able to use it in the following year. That's pretty much why we changed it to a rollover. Excuse me. The HSA plan is for it's for the bronze plan members. So if you choose the bronze plan and you're going to be paying deductibles first, you can contribute to an HSA as well, which is the $4,400 for an individual and then the $8,750 for a family. And that full balance is rolled year to year and it stays with you even if you leave the district. I don't know if anybody has any questions regarding the FSA or the HSA. Can go on. So we do still also offer the health reimbursement account, the HRA, through the district. And that's the paperwork that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, where you fill out the form, you take your bills and you take your payment, and you send that into the HR office, and that goes to Deb Dower and Bill. They take care of that, and you get paid through the warrant. Excuse me. That being said, it's for copays, which we're not going to have much of. So it's copays for doctor's visits, office visits, but not for pharmacy visits, but it is for the doctor's visits. You're going to see a slide that shows different copays in a moment. That was for old information that we've since updated and pretty much eliminated all of the copays. So the copays you're going to be reimbursed for are the doctor's visits to your regular PCP, or specialist visits, where that's going to be a $40 copay. You can submit your paperwork and get that reimbursed as well. And I'm going to flip to the next slide if I can. There we go. So this slide shows the copays that were in place before we made the changes to eliminate all of these copays and just go with the office visits and the specialist visits and the urgent care as well. The urgent care is $40 like a specialist visit, so you would get reimbursed for that as well. And then we're at the last page with resources, which is on our website. Barry actually put this together for us. So everything that's on our website has links to the different things here. We have the PFA overview, which is what we've just gone through. The health insurance rates, there's a link for that. There's the Access Blue New England Saver Plan link, which will show you the base plan that Blue Cross, that's Blue Cross's plan, that is the underlying plan for the PFAs. And then there's links to each of the PFAs, which really just goes through the different deductibles. And then, of course, there's the Blue Care Elect, the PPO plan that some people are on, which that's not changing. It's only increasing in the premium. There's also directions in there to log into Employee Navigator, which I'm not sure if there are any retirees on, but the retirees can't go through Employee Navigator. They have to go directly to Deb Dower. But if you're an employee, you can go through Employee Navigator, and you can meet with a benefits counselor, and they will help you there as well. You can set up an appointment that is our copay. I'm sorry, I just want to see. I saw a question pop up. Anyways, the benefits counselors can assist you. I just lost that question.
The
Okay.
question was,
The question was about the office copay. So we have to, that slide with the copays, we should have taken out and or updated, but
Yeah. The
well,
copay is not $50. For regular primary care, it's $25, and for the specialist, it's $50. We were able to have the Access Blue New England Saver Plan pretty much eliminated all of the copays that we had originally thought we were going to have in place. So that slide is the reason we haven't taken it down yet is because of the PEC agreement, but that's a whole different conversation. That slide really should say 25 and 40 for the copays for the office visits and the specialist. And outside of that, there's the prescription copays, and that's really it for the most part. There's a couple of durable equipment copays, but that's, a unique situation.
One note I'll make is that preventive care continues to be covered at 100% under this plan. So the annual adult physicals and associated lab work, so when you get your cholesterol screened, annual pediatric exams, and there's a schedule, you bring your week old, your month old, your 6-month-old, that's covered at 100%. Annual OBGYN exams are covered at 100%, and all of the associated lab work with those visits continues to be covered at 100%. So the office visits only apply to diagnostic appointments. So you have strep throat or an ear infection or something like that. When you go to be diagnosed with something, that's where, once your deductible is met, you'll have a copay.
If I can just chime in for a quick second. So we'll put some clarifying information on that slide for anybody who's going to visit the slideshow again. But I just want to let people know, if you haven't already seen it, on our homepage, wrsd.net, there's like a new, if you scroll down a little bit, there's a news panel kind of a thing with the open enrollment information. If you click on that, you'll get to all this information that we've been talking about and all the links.
Justin, we put together some FAQs, and I thought maybe if we could ask them, if you can answer them along the way. They've just been questions we've been asked, at different meetings.
Let's shoot. Let's do it.
Okay. So will I have the same coverage as I do now?
So the coverage is a little bit different, right? You're going to have the same network, but the way it's financed is going to be different, right? So kind of getting back to the original crux of the strategy, we're still Blue Cross. We're still with those doctors, with that drug formulary. We're changing how we finance the benefit, if that makes sense to folks. So today, you go for an office visit, you pay a copay. You go for a prescription drug, you pay a copay. You've got some initial deductible exposure potentially. In this model, we're increasing the deductible exposure, but in turn, increasing the subsidy that goes along with that. So that's kind of a long way to answer. The coverage is going to be financed differently, but from an actuarial value, it should be very consistent, if not better.
And I know you've already answered some of these questions, but I'm just going to repeat them so we have them all in one place. If I go to the doctor on July 2nd, what should I expect upon?
So if you go to the doctor on July 2nd, you're going to present them with your new insurance information. The doctor should run that new insurance information. They should see that there's no copay that's applicable, right? That it's attributed to the deductible. And in a perfect world, you go for that office visit and you get a bill from that provider. You get an EOB from Blue Cross. The dollar amounts match, and they use your debit card to pay it. That should really be the process for anything as it relates to kind of when you're being seen. You always want to make sure the bill goes through the insurance contract, right? That Blue Cross has seen it. They've had the ability to apply their discount to that bill. And then really from anything from a prescription drug standpoint, you're just paying that with that debit card at time of service.
Okay. And when I go to the pharmacy on July 2nd, what does that look like?
Yeah, exact same process. So paying with the debit card at time of service for folks who are on generic drugs, my expectation is that the pricing isn't going to change very much on those, right? If you're on a drug that they're charging you $7 for today, that's going to be $7 under this program. Where there could be some differences, right? Differences in what you've seen from a cost standpoint are with those higher cost tier 2 and tier 3 drugs. It's going to be a little bit different for everybody. We have some resources that'll help you. You will have the cards by July 1st. We'll have resources that help folks kind of navigate the prescription drug pricing program, but really for the folks that are taking generic drugs out there, cost should be exactly the same, and you're just using that district-sponsored debit card to pay it.
Okay. Who do I contact with questions?
Yeah, so that you have a ton of resources. So I would tell folks that anything as it relates to your financial obligations under the program, please make my team your first call in those situations. We'll be able to reach out directly to providers on your behalf, explain the secondary payer relationships, all those things. I'll make sure that folks have kind of the contact information for our claims team. You'll have access to a member portal, to a smartphone application. You can contact the claims team through there, but please use that team as liberally as you see fit. There is no question that's too big or too small.
I'm going to go to the chat just so we don't lose track of those questions. It says, could you please provide a bit more detail about reimbursement specialists? I understand it's a third-party service, but I'd like to better understand your organizational stability and long-term presence, particularly as it relates to continuity through FY27. It would be helpful to know how long reimbursement specialist has been in business, how long Justin has been with the company, how client funds are managed. Are funds held as an upfront lump sum or billed on a monthly basis to the district? And additionally, what are your hours of operation if someone needs assistance with copays?
Yeah, so RSI has been operating as a third-party administrator since 1996. We had the first integrated claim feed with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts, and we've been executing PFA plans even before HRAs were prevalent. I myself have been with RSI since 2017. From a funding standpoint, we don't hold the district's money on their behalf. So really, as you know, without getting into too much detail, as those debit cards are used, they draw from a deposit amount that's held by a bank. It's not held by my company. And then that deposit account is trued up on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. So really, it's a deposit that's made that funds the debit cards. And then it's kind of trued up back to that deposit amount. But if the question is alluding to kind of, you know, we're not holding money, earning on the float or anything to that extent. The district pays me an administrative fee to administer the program.
Okay, and I'll take this next question. It says, are there any differences between 21 pay periods and 26 pay period employees? The only difference is in your biweekly deduction. 10-month, there's plenty of 10-month employees that are paid over 21 pays. And then there's plenty of employees in the district that are paid over 26 pays. So we take the monthly cost, which is the same regardless of what your position is in the district. We take the monthly cost of the employee share. You multiply that times 12 and then divide it by either 21 or 26 pay periods. And that's how you would get that cost. That's how you would see that deduction amount.
Vic, can I just jump in for a second? There was one piece left of that prior question, which was, what are the hours of operation, Justin?
Oh, hours of operation. Yeah, so it's 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. The claims team is available, or 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Correct.
Okay, so I'm just going back to the list of questions we had. You already answered this one, but when do I pay my portion, at the time of visit or after the fact? And we know that's after the fact. When you get the bill, you compare your bills. Yep. Once I have hit my deductible, so if I have the individual plan and I've hit the $4,000 deductible with the PFA portion as well as my own portion, when I go to the ER, what am I paying?
You shouldn't be paying anything.
Okay. Because there's no copay associated.
Because there's no post-deductible copay. So once you've met that $4,000 as an individual, whether or not you're in a family plan or whatnot, once you've met $4,000, the only copays that you're going to have are for office visits, PCP visits, specialist visits, and prescription drug. So if you've met the deductible and you go for an inpatient procedure, you pay $0. If you go for an outpatient procedure, you pay $0. If you go for an MRI, you pay $0. If you go for an ER visit, you pay $0. Again, the copays are limited to those smaller amounts for kind of the more basic services.
How can I find specific costs of varying prescriptions?
Yeah, so I will tell you that Your RX Saver or Good RX are good resources for that. You can simply type in the name of the drug, type in where you're searching for that drug, and it's going to populate a listing of pharmaceutical prices at different area pharmacies. A lot of those programs will also aggregate all the manufacturer coupon and rebate programs that are out there. So if there's somebody on this call who's on a higher cost tier 3 pharmaceutical, a lot of times there's an opportunity for you to get that drug directly from the manufacturer at a significantly reduced cost. And that's really as simple as logging into that Your RX Saver website, typing in the name of that drug. If there's a coupon program, a patient assistance program, or rebate program available for that drug, it'll link you directly to that manufacturer website for sign up.
And we have another question in the chat. It says, we have read that some drugs may not be covered. Can you share which drugs that are covered now will not be covered?
Yeah, so
If you want.
yeah, please, Katie. Yeah, I'm not aware of any exclusions.
So the drug formulary can change at any time throughout the year. Anytime that does happen, if you are a member who is impacted, so whether it's you, your spouse, or your children, you typically receive a letter 60 days in advance of that drug leaving the formulary. For July 1st, Blue Cross Blue Shield has removed GLP-1s for weight loss from the formulary. So that includes drugs like Zepbound. If you are on a GLP-1 for diabetes, that continues to be covered just as it is today. If you are on a GLP-1 for weight loss today and it's being covered and you are concerned about losing that coverage effective July 1st, there are several direct-to-manufacturer programs and also third parties out there. So you've probably seen the commercial with Serena Williams for Roe. Noom has a program, and these drugs have come down significantly in cost. So there's also oral options in pill form. And then there are compounded options, which I am not a doctor, but I will note that those are not FDA monitored. So use at your own risk. But the only drug that Blue Cross has announced is leaving the formulary is GLP-1s for weight loss, like Zepbound.
And that's all I'm seeing for questions. Oh, we just had another one. Will the benefits counselors be able to answer questions in regards to all of this?
Yes.
They should be able to.
Yeah, they should be able to. And if you have a very specific question, they might need to go to some of the, our various resources, whether it be Justin or Blue Cross or maybe the HR team, just to clarify something. But in general, yes, the benefit counselors have been trained on the PFA, on Blue Cross, on your cost, and should be able to answer your questions.
Okay. Where can I find information about what is covered under the plan? An example of this is that on my current health insurance, we pay when my children get a strep throat test. If this isn't covered, will the cost be deductible so we can go through the portion we are given from the district faster?
Yeah, so everything is covered. It's just the process that's going to be a little bit different, if that makes sense, right? So the same process holds true in that situation, but you're using the district funded debit card to pay the Blue Cross Blue Shield contracted rate, if that makes sense. So yes, in all likelihood, right? If you have a strep throat test for your child, right? The cost of that might be $100, right? Whereas in the past you paid a $40 copay, you just pay that copay, right? That was your cost. In this model, you're using that debit card to pay it. The answer is yes. It might burn a little bit faster than if you were just using a standard $20, $30, $40 copay, something to that extent. But with all that said, actuarially, we see 70% of folks use less than $1,000 a year from a health insurance standpoint. So even with that debit card, my expectation is that your out-of-pocket exposure is going to be pretty limited.
Another question. I saw that all levels are going to be based on the Blue Cross Blue Shield New England's Access Saver 2 plan. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so that just means that the base plan the district is buying, that's the base plan from Blue Cross Blue Shield. So when you call Blue Cross Blue Shield, that's the plan that they're going to tell you you're on, right? They're not going to have detail around the PFA. And so that's kind of part of the reason why I tell folks, anything as it relates to your financial obligations under the program, please make us your first call in those instances, and we'll do everything we can to help you.
Okay. How will out-of-state family members, college kids, for example, be affected?
Yeah, the network is exactly the same as it was today. So college kids out of state, if you're on one of those HMO programs, you're on this Access Blue New England Saver program, they'll still have access to emergency coverage out of state. If they wanted to have routine care while out of state, you'd really need to be on that PPO program. The HMO doesn't allow for that.
Okay. I don't know if we have any other questions out there. I'm not seeing any right now. Guess we'll kick it back to you, Bill.
Yeah, sure. I get, first of all, thanks to everyone for attending, and thanks to our panel here for answering the questions. I'm going to kind of go back a little bit to one of the things that Katie responded to, is if you have a question that maybe this wasn't the right place to ask, or if it might be something you think of later on, feel free to reach out to the HR folks. We're happy to support as best we can. And if we can't answer a question, we're going to go to Katie or Justin or Blue Cross or whomever. But certainly feel free to reach out. We, if it's something that isn't particular to you, but everybody should know, we'll put it on our FAQ so that we put it on the website to share. We have a few more presentations to do. So if you look on the list that I think is on the website, feel free to attend those. This will be in the on the website for people to view as well. I do see that I think Katie answered the question, will all hospitals remain the same as our current plan? Yeah. It's the same program. It's just different deductibles that the PFA card is offsetting, the PFA plan's offsetting. So I guess in absence of any more questions or any more thoughts, if anyone has anything to put out there, we're happy to kind of stick around for a minute. But other than that, I want to thank you all again and look forward to doing this, getting this going. I would assume, by May 8th, you need to make a selection and we can help with that. But hopefully this was helpful to you as well. But there'll be questions again once we get through this process of prior to July 1st. Okay, what do we got to do again? How does this new plan work? We'll certainly find ways to share that information with you. I'll remind you of that information then. So we're looking forward to that step of the process too. All right. On that note, thank you to everyone, and we will hopefully catch you all soon. Have a good night.